All right, man, peace. So, brothers, as many of you know who grew up in the late 80s into the 90s, one of the most transcendent athletes of that era was Mr. Deion Sanders. He was right there with Barry Bonds, Barry Sanders, Ken Griffey Jr., Roy Jones, Jerry Rice, and at one point in the mid-90s, he was approaching up into that Michael Jordan stratosphere in regards to how he was viewed in his sport. Deion Sanders was the first true lockdown corner, meaning what? Opposing teams would not even throw in his direction. He would take away a complete side of the NFL field on the defensive end. Truly something to behold, and I'm not quite sure if it's ever been replicated since he retired. Now, there was a short stretch where Darrelle Revis, the superstar cornerback of the New York Jets, he kind of sort of approximated Deion in regards to how he was viewed by offenses across the NFL. But Deion Sanders was a non-payroll athlete as well as being an unbelievable technician in his craft. He also did a great deal for cornerbacks overall because before him, you had superstar corners like Darrell Green in the 1980s, Mike Haynes in the late 70s, early 80s, Mel Blount in the 70s. But they were never viewed as being the linchpin of their defense. At one point, Deion Sanders was viewed as being the linchpin of multiple defenses. When he left the Atlanta Falcons, I believe in 94, and came to the San Francisco 49ers, that caused a shift in the balance of power in the NFC, as up to that time it was being dominated by the Dallas Cowboys. When Deion came to the 49ers, the balance of power shifted to their direction. He played in San Francisco for 1 year and went to the Dallas Cowboys, and the balance of power shifted back over to the Cowboys, and you could feel it. It was unbelievable. It had never been done by a cornerback before, where he was viewed as being the pivotal aspect of their defense. Prior to him, everyone looked towards a defensive lineman or a linebacker to be the best player on defense. You know, the Reggie Whites, the Bruce Smiths, the Lawrence Taylors. Why am I saying all this? Because Deion Sanders was able to create such a preeminent reputation for himself that even to this day, the amount of respect that modern NFL players give to Deion Sanders is pretty much unheard of. He can go anywhere and get a great deal of respect in multiple worlds, not just the NFL world, the NBA world, the hip-hop world. I mean, just look up his video for Must Be the Money. That was a classic song back in the early to mid-90s, believe it or not. So anyway, he sat down with Stephen A. Smith to discuss numerous topics across the NFL, one of them being Mr. Ben Roethlisberger, and he did not hold back. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Joining us now, the GOAT, two-time Super Bowl champ and former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, the Hall of Famer, Deion Sanders.
There are people who will tell you that they believe that Prime Time, which is Deion Sanders' nickname, is the greatest NFL player of all time. There are certain people who will tell you that I disagree. But in regards to the players that I've seen, he's definitely in the top 5. He's right there with Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, and then probably Deion. I probably have Lawrence Taylor number 3 after Jerry Rice and Joe Montana, maybe even number 2. But Deion was up there in regards to his impact.
With us in Arlington, joining us on behalf of Restore Hair Plugs, and of course you can always check him out on NFL Network as well. Deion, let me ask you this, because we just heard Big Ben. To me, I feel like he's deflecting blame and criticizing his teammates. You're the former player, you're the star. What do you take from it?
Big Ben has always been a blame deflector. He's always been a prima donna. He's always been a wannabe manipulator. Remember, for a while now, he's been threatening to retire in hopes that Pittsburgh ownership, the Rooneys, would fire Mike Tomlin. That didn't work, so he's had to try to go another route. That's always been Big Ben. You would think that he would be on his P's and Q's and on his best behavior, seeing as for a while he was a serial rapist, allegedly. But, you know, I guess old habits die hard. He's gone from raping women to trying to rape the roles of many of his teammates and his coaches.
This is what Big Ben does. This is who Big Ben is.
Thank you, sir.
He has a track record of consistency in this area of life. And secondly, he's talking about he earned and he deserved that. Last time I checked, AB is better at his position than Big Ben is at his.
Thank you, sir. Talk about it.
And secondly, this is what I can't stand about these quarterbacks in our game. I love our game. Our game is still blessing me and providing for me. But when we talk about quarterbacks, we pay them based on the position and not the player. We give a quarterback 20 and he's not even that guy. Or darn near 30.
Hey, all you need to know is that Jay Cutler once made 26.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
That's all you need to know.
We should be paying people based on what they bring to the table and not the position that they play. AB, if the highest paid quarterback makes this, shouldn't the highest paid receiver makes this? See back.
Well, the problem, Deion, is that the NFL has a hard salary cap, so that goes back to the NFL Player Association and the fact that, let's be for real, the NFL and how these teams are architectured is not a sport that's built to not have a salary cap. They almost have to have a salary cap because you can't pay 53 people. You just can't. So you almost have to have a hard salary cap, and you're always going to focus on the quarterback because whether it's true or not, the quarterback is viewed as being the most important position, not just in professional football, but in all of the major sports. So that's the problem. The NFL Players Association is weak. Their players, for the most part, no disrespect, are dumb. That's why I call them meatheads. They're overly emotional and easily manipulated. And then on top of that, they just don't really stand for anything of substance. They want to get down on one knee, but when it comes to the things that are realistic and pragmatic, they fail. But do I agree with Deion Sanders that Antonio Brown is better at his position than Big Ben is at his? There's no doubt about it. I'm already on record as stating that I believe that Big Ben has probably been the most overrated quarterback in the NFL for the past 5 years now. And Antonio Brown, in my view, has been the best wide receiver in the NFL for a while now. And just in regards to pass catching, other than Jerry Rice, I've never seen anybody better than him. Antonio Brown can run every route, catch every pass, and he always shows up in big games. A lot of cats will talk about Randy Moss. I'm sorry. Randy Moss said he plays when he wants to play. That's what he himself stated. Antonio Brown has never said that. So I have to put Antonio Brown above Randy Moss just off that. And no disrespect to Randy Moss or his fans, but he's had a history of coming up very small in big games.
Basketball got it right. Baseball get it right. We're the only big sport of the big three that has gotten it wrong because we entitled these quarterbacks.
No, that's not it. It's because your rosters are so large, Deion. That's the bottom line. Your rosters are too large. They can't pay everybody.
Now they start feeling like they can say and do whatever they want to do.
And I got a point to add, and I ain't gonna say you missed it. You just didn't get to it.
And on top of that, the quarterbacks are being protected by the NFL. It's not just that they're the beneficiaries of privilege in regards to their salaries. It's also that they know that they cannot be touched on the football field. So now they can run off at the mouth.
AB is a big reason why Big Ben is respected.
Exactly.
The fact of the matter is,
I can't quite agree with that, Stephen A. Smith. Please understand, Big Ben has 2 Super Bowl victories. Both of them were before AB got there. So I can't quite go that route. I understand what you're trying to say, that Big Ben has benefited from having a wide receiver as focused and as talented as Antonio Brown. But at the end of the day, Big Ben made his bones before Antonio Brown was there.
when you look at Antonio Brown, let's be very, very clear, Molly Max Prime. Antonio Brown is not some average player.
True.
Antonio Brown was in the discussion and is still in the discussion as to being one of the greatest receivers in the game today.
No, Antonio Brown should be in the discussion for being considered one of the greatest receivers in NFL history. That's what he is in my view. I mean, just looking at, since I've been watching football in 1989, 1990, Jerry Rice, Chris Carter, Sterling Sharp, Michael Irvin, Andre Reed, Larry Fitzgerald, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson. Antonio Brown is right there with all those guys.
We literally opened the season debating, is he the best?
And also Julio Jones.
If the debate was taking place right now, you can't summarily dismiss what this man done. A matter of fact, what you're seeing from Juju Smith-Schuster, the stud that he is, in large part is because Antonio Brown is on the other side of the field.
What you're seeing from him is Batman and Robin.
That's right.
Pippen and Jordan. If you take Jordan off the court, Pippen got to carry that thing,
right.
man. All right, don't get Scotty, I love you, but I'm being truthful. Okay, you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So AB is AB. This is my problem. I know Juju was balling, having a good game, but this offense, when you get down to the red zone, it has to run through AB. You can't put AB off to the left.
But to me, one thing,
I'm not quite sure if I can agree with that. AB is a phenomenal wide receiver, but he's only 5'9". It's very rare that you're going to center your offense in the red zone around a receiver that small. I don't care how great his routes are. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster, I believe, is a little taller. I believe he's somewhere around 6 feet tall, 6'1". So it's reasonable that Big Ben might look to him more.
Once again, Brian, what makes it even worse? Even if you did, you might have made a mistake. Big Ben comes out and says, I wish we had gone to Juju Smith-Schuster every down with Antonio Brown on the field. If listen, that's disrespectful.
But is AB right?
No, it's not disrespectful, Stephen A. Smith. Just because you're wearing Drew Brees' jersey does not mean that you understand what it means to be a quarterback. Now, in regards to Deion was great at his position, but he also was not a quarterback. So when it comes to that component of the argument, I have to disagree with you guys. I can understand why Big Ben would prefer to look towards Juju Smith-Schuster or maybe even their tight end in the red zone. Because once again, Antonio Brown's only 5'9". You have to throw almost a perfect pass to get him the football in the red zone.
Be wrong if he said, well, I wish you would have thrown the ball accurately. We wouldn't have been in that same situation.
Right. He wouldn't have been wrong. He wouldn't be wrong, but again,
but
he
publicly, he would have been wrong.
That's right. He would have been wrong publicly. He wouldn't have been wrong this way publicly.
True.
He wouldn't have been wrong this way publicly. But Max, I got to tell you something right now. I think that Big Ben was wrong for just going the direction that he went in because you know you're dealing with a sensitive cat in Antonio Brown. Professional.
Right, but he has to be able to speak the truth to Antonio Brown. Stephen A. Smith, you're already on record as stating, at least according to you, that these modern-day athletes are so sensitive that you can't say anything to them. We know the truth is that you're truly the sensitive one, but at the end of the day, Big Ben is the quarterback of that team, and he has to be able to communicate with Antonio Brown. Am I in agreement with him that he should be able to go public with some of the issues that he may have with his teammates? I'm not quite sure. I have to trust his judgment on that. He should know his teammates better than I do. He should know his receivers better than I do. On top of that, he's been in the NFL for 15 years. He's a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. Almost 3. Because really, they should have beat Green Bay back in 2010. So, I mean, it's not like we're talking about a rookie quarterback here. He does have a bit of clout, equity, leeway, whatever you want to call it.
Professional, elite, but still sensitive. And you know that kind of comment has got to sting him. Why would you do that if you're Big Ben Roethlisberger?
Because he wants AB to step his game up. That's why. He wants him to step his game up, especially if he wants to be targeted in the red zone. And that's my point. I don't think that it's anything personal. I think that Big Ben just understands that AB is 5'9". In order for him to hit AB in the red zone, he has to hit him with a perfect pass. That means that he has to run better routes.
The most curious thing about all this is he said Juju Smith-Schuster all 4 times. And then when they pressed him later about, hey, who's your number 1 receiver, he's bringing up James Conner and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't make sense. He is, to me, seemingly intentionally pressing Antonio Brown's buttons, right? But this is what, as Deion Sanders just mentioned, Ben Roethlisberger does. Prime, I totally agree with you about the fact that the quarterback position is overpaid and overblown. The special ones are worth the money. The middle-class ones aren't, but they're paid like they are. They're privileged above all other positions in a way they probably should be. Whenever I hear, well, the quarterback's just resetting the market, he's resetting the quarterback market. There's a salary cap. That means that dollar is coming from some other position and being...
Right, but there's always going to be a salary cap. As long as the NFL Players Association is as weak as it is, and as long as the rosters are as large as they are, there's always going to be a salary cap.
Being redirected to the quarterback, so I hear you about that. All that said, though, Roethlisberger is the leader of the team, for better or worse, and the problem with...
This was an extraordinary play. I saw this live. This kid, Juju Smith-Schuster, he's special.
Talking in the media is you have to be so careful, because if you look deeper into what he said, he may be able to defend.
And number 26 on the Broncos, that safety, he needs to get out there on the track. Because there's no way in the world that Juju Smith-Schuster should have been able to beat him to the end zone when he had an angle like that. Let me rewind that back a little bit.
Defend. And the problem with talking in the media...
Look at 26, just stumbling and bumbling all over the place. He still has the angle right there. There's no way that Juju Smith-Schuster is supposed to be able to beat him to the end zone.
Media is you have to be so careful, because if you look deeper into what he said, he may be able to defend everything he said. And maybe it's consistent, like, with how he thinks philosophically about this. But It's going to be chopped up by the media. We're going to analyze it. We're going to talk about who he took a shot. So if you're a quarterback who talks, you better really not care. I don't think Roethlisberger does.
No, he doesn't care because he understands that he has equity. Once again, he is very accomplished. I also think that he was embarrassed that he threw that last interception to that lineman against the Denver Broncos. He was embarrassed about it, looking for somebody to blame, and maybe he also was lashing out at the coach who called that play to be thrown to Antonio Brown when he's probably made it clear that he does not feel comfortable throwing to Antonio Brown in the red zone. So a lot of time when these guys get upset, there are a lot of extenuating circumstances.
It's a good news for him, but you better really not care.
Ben is not built like that. He cares. He's very sensitive. He's very self-absorbent.
He's very self-absorbent. Is he a paper towel, Deion?
He has an ego out of this world, and he...
Really, Deion? You gonna say that Ben Roethlisberger has an ego out of this world? You saying that?
He does not understand that he wouldn't be on his platform if it had not been for AB and Le'Veon. That's why I heard you say Le'Veon didn't call him back. Ain't nobody even called him back when he called. How you the lead?
Brother, look, I hope for the best for Le'Veon Bell. I truly hope that he can find a way onto either the Green Bay Packers or the Indianapolis Colts. I truly do. But right now, the last thing that we should be concerned with is whether or not Le'Veon Bell responded to Ben Roethlisberger's calls. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be okay. They're not going to win any championships, but they're going to be okay. We have to hope that Le'Veon Bell is going to be okay because he's a running back who took a year off. So hopefully he's going to come back next year with the same explosiveness that he's had throughout his career.
You're the leader of the team, and you ask me if I'm going to be there, and I don't even call you back. That means I don't even respect you enough to even pick up your phone, to even hit redial. I don't even respect you enough to even text you, and that's a problem right there in itself.
Well, let me tell you why that's a problem. It's not a problem because of the game, because we recognize the fact that Big Ben Roethlisberger, he ain't Tom Brady, he ain't Aaron Rodgers, he ain't Drew Brees, but he is elite enough as a two-time Super Bowl champion, has 3 appearances to the Super Bowl. He's going to warrant strong consideration for the Hall of Fame, probably will make the Hall of Fame. So if they're not calling you back, it ain't because of your game.
Right.
Did Stephen A. Smith just state that Ben Roethlisberger is going to garner serious consideration for the Hall of Fame? Let me rewind this back.
It's because...
And you ask me if I'm going to be there, and I don't even call you back. That means I don't even respect you enough to even pick up your phone, to even hit redial. I don't even respect you enough to even text you. And that's a problem right there in itself.
Well, let me tell you why that's a problem. It's not a problem because of the game, because we recognize the fact that Big Ben Roethlisberger, he ain't Tom Brady, he ain't Aaron Rodgers, he ain't Drew Brees, but he is elite enough as a 2-time Super Bowl champion, has 3 appearances to the Super Bowl. He's going to warrant strong consideration for the Hall of Fame, probably.
Stephen A. Smith, knock it off, bro. Ben Roethlisberger is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm going to say it again. Big Ben Roethlisberger is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. Knock it off. And when I say a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, I'm not talking about like a Eli Manning, who I think that even he will most likely be a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though he won't deserve it. In my view, he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback at all. But he's going to get into the Hall of Fame definitely because of his last name and the fact that he beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl twice. But Big Ben is definitely a surefire Hall of Famer, and in my view, a first ballot Hall of Famer. I would be hard pressed to think of a scenario where he does not get in on the first ballot.
Probably will make the Hall of Fame. So if they're not calling you back, it ain't because of your game.
Right.
It's because of your leadership or lack thereof.
And your character.
And so to me, this is the latest example of it. I like Big Ben Roethlisberger, but I don't like what he did to Antonio Brown in this particular situation. You know, game knows game. Game respects game. We all know that Antonio Brown has game. This man is one of the elite receivers. If you had a question, and I said this on my radio show yesterday, if you sat here today and asked this question, who's the best wide receiver in football? Could you say Antonio Brown is not a part of that discussion?
Well, first of all, the argument
is
is only AB and Julio. First of all, that's the argument. Everybody else falls right up under that.
I think that the brother down there with the Houston Texans, DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, he'll garner some votes. But I agree. It's either going to be AB or Julio Jones.
They fall right up under that. It's some dogs. D-Hop is a dog. Now, that's right.
Agreed.
Right. You know, it's some dogs still out there. Michael Thomas is coming. Michael Thomas is coming. He's coming. You know.
Let me tell you a dude who normally does not even get mentioned, who's right there with anybody. That cat out there with the San Diego Chargers, Keenan Allen, he can do everything. He can do anything that everybody else can do or anybody else can do. He's a dominant wide receiver.
Odell is there. Odell is there.
Right.
All right? But
Deion,
AB, the consistency is everything.
Deion, do you think it's that Big Ben's play it's high but not high enough to justify him talking like this, or is he just being disrespectful of his teammates, or both?
Well, Big Ben has been a bit overrated for a while now. And I mean, let's be for real. He's still living off of those 2 Super Bowls. He's not a top 5 quarterback. I don't think that he's as good as Russell Wilson. He's definitely not as good as Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Jared Goff, or Pat Mahomes. And then you have guys like Andrew Luck. You even have the young kid down there with the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson. You have a lot of quarterbacks that right now I'd probably take over Big Ben. But he's still living off of what he did, 10, 11 years ago.
I think it's both.
I mean, he's a great quarterback. Don't get it twisted. When I say great, in quotes, meaning he's good to very good, but he has these outstanding performances. Like Big Ben has these games where he throws for 500 yards. I think that he has the NFL record for most 500-yard passing games. So that's where, it becomes a little dicey when you start to criticize Big Ben or say that he can't say things about his receivers.
Amongst the league, Big Ben is good. Amongst the league, Big Ben ain't that dude.
Agreed.
He's not that dude that's going to have you tossing and turning. He's not a Tom Brady that he's going to shred you. He's not an Aaron Rodgers that if you get one step, he's going to put it on the money. He's not.
Absolutely. Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen.
He's not a Drew Brees that has only thrown 2 interceptions. I ain't going to blame nobody. Going to do his job day in and day out. He ain't none of that. I can keep going. For the sake of time, I'm just trying to be polite because this ain't my show.
But I'll also tell you this. Well, first of all, it's your show right now. Anytime Prime is with me, it's your show, baby. I don't mind handling you. Listen, you special when it's a miracle that you on TV in the daytime because he belongs in prime time. But here's the deal. In the end, what it comes down to is this. You're Big Ben Roethlisberger. You're leading the league in red zone interceptions right now. How are you talking about other people when you lead the league in interceptions? And they go
because he don't give a shit. Ben Roethlisberger is a riverboat gambler. That's how he's built his name, by being a riverboat gambler. He just goes out there and does whatever the hell he feels like doing. That's why I state he's still living in like 2009. Now, Roethlisberger back in 08, 09, 2010, well, he would throw off about 5 linebackers and 3 defensive linemen and then throw the ball 50 yards down the field. That dude was something special. This guy here, he's still playing in the NFL. Let's be for real, because they've made many rules to make it easier for quarterbacks. They've made many rules to make it easier for quarterbacks. You cannot even hit the quarterback anymore. So that's why he's still around. If you could beat on the quarterback like you could 10, 12 years ago, he'd be retired right now.
They gonna sit up there and talk about he didn't run the wrong way, he didn't run the right route. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
But he has a history of throwing people under the bus. He has a history of that.
All right.
Let's stop playing like...
Shit, he got a history of throwing people under him while he gets on top of them without their permission. That's what he got a history of.
Playing like we don't see this.
We see it. We see it all. And we got more to get into here with Deion. It's like first...
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things turn out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Shout out to my brother Chris. Big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But anyway, peace.